News mempersembahkan Indonesia Food Summit 2021, kompleksitas pangan nasional dari hulu ke hilir. Selasa 25 Mei jam 9 pagi. Gabung di event hybrid kami.
我们为您报道最新的华语资讯，通过严格的验证和遵守卫生协议，在新的一年，我们更早地为您提供资讯。别错过每周一至周五早上7点的美读新闻。
Metro TV hadir di mana peristiwa terjadi. Bekerja dengan identitas yang jelas. Dan mampu beradaptasi dengan teknologi terbaru. Agar Anda bisa mendapatkan informasi dengan segera. Jurnalis Metro TV berintegritas dan tidak menerima imbalan dalam bentuk apapun. Metro TV, knowledge to elevate. World News, Senin hingga Jumat live jam 11:30 malam.
Cars were driving through deep flood waters in West Laco, Texas, close to the U.S.-Mexico border and the Gulf of Mexico on Wednesday. It is stretched from southwest Louisiana and East Texas northward into Arkansas and Oklahoma Wednesday evening. The flooding kept some restaurant owners in the area from opening their business. The National Weather Service warned Wednesday that more rain is still expected, including areas where flooding has already caused misery this week. Good evening, you're watching World News on Metro Global Network with me, Sarah Wayne, and we are live from Jakarta, Indonesia. And here are our top stories for tonight. Tonight we have the latest update on Israel-Palestine conflict. Indonesia recorded a trade surplus of $2.19 billion in April 2021. It is higher than previous month, which was at $1.57 billion. Indonesia recorded a trade surplus of $2.19 billion in April 2021. It is higher than the previous month, which was at $1.57 billion. In an online press conference, the Indonesian Central Statistics Agency, or BPS, stated that the surplus was favorable for the rise of export for up to 52%, and it showed a positive indicator for Indonesian economic growth. Export was better than import in April, which was rising 52% compared to March, while import inclined almost 30% month on month. An economist from the University of Indonesia, Fitra Faisal, said that the trade surplus was performing very well, higher than the market expectation. It's forecast earlier that the trade balance would decline as much as $1.57 billion. Further, export also increased in tandem with the Purchasing Manager Index, which has reached solid expansive level at 54.4 in April 2021. The market has been optimistic for seeing the achievement in terms of export and import data in April, which will have positively impact to economic growth up to 7% in second quarter of 2021. In order to eliminate the spread of COVID-19 in the aviation sector, the Directorate General for Aviation at the Transportation Ministry launched a vaccination acceleration program for air crews. Situated at Health Aviation Hall in Jakarta, a number of air crews, including pilots, co-pilots, cabin crews, and engineers on board, took their first shots of AstraZeneca vaccine. It is a protection program for air crews who are working at aviation transportation sectors for onboard and ground crews as they directly work with passengers. Director General for Aviation at the Transportation Ministry, Novi Rianto, who oversees the program, said that the program is targeted for 1,200 crews within 5 days from May 15th to 23rd. Novi added that about 95% of air crews must be vaccinated by the end of 2021. Meanwhile, second shots of the vaccine will be given on August 24th through 28th. Indonesian police is conducting air patrols to monitor returning e-travelers in 7 checkpoints. The results showed that more than 5,000 people had returned from their hometown in Sumatra. Before boarding on ferries to the Java Island, the passengers were required to show that they were free of COVID-19 documents. From random checks, 67 people were tested reactive for COVID-19. However, police hope that by the end of this month, positive cases will decrease. Meanwhile, a week after Eid al-Fitr, traffic on the Trans-Sumatra Highway is still crowded. Police predict there will be thousands more passengers boarding ferries heading to Java Island in the coming days. Based on the data from the Indonesian Transportation Ministry, a total of 400,000 passengers have crossed Sunda Strait through Bakahuni Port. The peak of returning e-travelers from hometowns is predicted to happen on May 21st and the 22nd. Singapore criticized the Chief Minister of Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, for making unfounded claims on social media that a new COVID-19 variant in Singapore was particularly harmful to children and could cause a fresh surge of infections in India. Few passengers queued at Singapore's airport Thursday as the city's state sought to correct a false statement made by an Indian politician about a new virus variant in Singapore. Singapore's foreign ministry said it is disappointed that a prominent political figure had failed to ascertain the facts and will summon India's High Commissioner. Earlier, Kejriwal called for a halt in air traffic between the two nations because of the new Singapore variant. It was unclear why he made such call because Singapore has already banned flights from India over the high number of cases there. After successfully keeping the virus at bay 4 months, Singapore is seeing a resurgence with infections of untraceable origin, rising to 48 cases in the past week from 10 the previous week. Responding to Israel-Palestine conflict, German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas met the Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz on Thursday at the Defense Ministry in Tel Aviv. Maas is expected to meet with Israeli President Reuven Rivlin later on Thursday and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. After, Maas is also scheduled to meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah, West Bank. Maas said that the visit was intended to show the solidarity to both Israeli and Palestinian civilians who have been suffering from the latest eruption of conflict and an effort to push for a ceasefire and resumption of peace talks. Earlier, Israel unleashed a wave of airstrikes across the Gaza Strip on early Thursday, killing at least 1 Palestinian and wounding several others. Airstrikes also reported in the central town of Deir al-Balah and the southern town of Khan Yunis. Residents observed the rubble from at least 5 family homes destroyed in Khan Yunis. There were also heavy airstrikes on Al-Saftawi Street, a commercial district thoroughfare in Gaza City. The Israeli military said it struck at least 4 homes of Hamas commanders, targeting military infrastructure as well as a weapons storage unit at the home of a Hamas fighter in Gaza City. Stay with us on World News. We'll be right back with more news and information, including how Security Council members urged an immediate cessation of violence in the Israel-Gaza conflict, but the statement by the trio was blocked by the United States. Coming up on World News.
Semangat sering kolaps ngadepin new normal? Lo butuh bodyguard baru. Segar dingin SDC 1000 rasa orange. SDC 1000 dengan triple proteksi, vitamin C 1000 mg, madu dan ekstrak mint untuk bantu jaga daya tahan tubuhmu.
Rasa orange-nya seger banget, bikin baper. Siap gaspol di new normal. Minum SDC 1000 rasa orange.
Baru SDC 1000 rasa orange, bodyguard tubuh biar nggak ngedrop dari Wings Food.
Kesehatan itu adalah hal penting yang harus kita jaga loh.
Saat ini, teknologi pun ikut mendukung kesehatan.
Supaya semakin sehat dan bugar.
Bersama para pakar kesehatan, kami mengulas kesehatan yang berbalut teknologi.
Simak Go Healthy
Di Metro TV.
Metro TV hadir di mana peristiwa terjadi. Bekerja dengan identitas yang jelas dan mampu beradaptasi dengan teknologi terbaru agar Anda bisa mendapatkan informasi dengan segera. Jurnalis Metro TV berintegritas dan tidak menerima imbalan dalam bentuk apapun. Metro TV, knowledge to elevate. Metro Pagi Prime Time, setiap hari live jam 4:30 pagi.
Nobody is succeeding in bringing Israel into compliance to this global call for ending this aggression. What is the UN's business if it does not come rushing to help us, the vulnerable one, the ones who are under attack, the ones who are facing aggression? Nevertheless, we will not give up. We will keep knocking on the door. Nevertheless, our people everywhere, the Palestinians, in the occupied territory and both sides of the green light, you do not find a single one raising the white flag. The interest of the Palestinian people is not to send gifts to Netanyahu. The interest of the Palestinian people is to isolate Netanyahu and his extremist fascist groups until they cannot bear this global pressure on them to stop this aggression, which will happen. But it would have been good had it happened a few days ago. We would have saved lives, but they are dragging it for a long period of time.
That was Riyad Mansour, the Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations. In an emergency session, the Security Council members urged an immediate cessation of violence in the Israel-Gaza conflict and confirmed their support for a two-state solution in the region. The statement by the trio was blocked by the United States, which, according to the diplomats, is concerned it could interfere with diplomatic efforts to stop the violence. And now moving on to the next story. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now our next story and our next information on World News, where Palestinians living along Gaza's northern and eastern borders are fleeing intense Israeli bombardment. Families toting supplies sought refuge on Friday in temporary shelters in central Gaza City as Israeli artillery pounded the northern Gaza. Fleeing families arrived in pickup trucks, on donkeys, and by foot at schools run by the United Nations, hauling pillows and pans, blankets, and bread. Men lugged large plastic bags, and women carried infants on their shoulders, cramming into classrooms. Israeli artillery pounded northern Gaza early on Friday in an attempt to destroy a vast network of militant tunnels inside the territory. The military said it is bringing the front lines closer to defense and dense civilian areas.
بالليل ضلت الزنانات تقصف والبراميل يقصفوا علينا لما انتفج النهار لمينا حالنا ما صدقنا نطلع من الدار واجينا نجري على المدارس هاي كل اللي ولا واحد ولا استوعبنا شيء من من صرخة الأولاد، هم يصرخوا ويصوتوا بدهم يطلعوا وإحنا بنرجف عليهم. أكثر من هيك لا. بالمهم صحينا لقينا الدنيا دمار عندنا كلها ورا، فيش شيء عندنا مليح.
ولا في دنيا ولا في دين، صرنا الله أكبر نكبر أكثر من هيك لا. الدار تطلع وتنزل تطلع وتنزل، أكثر من إنه نكبر ما قدرناش ولا قدرنا نطلع ولا اتصلنا على الإسعاف. هم الإسعافات بيقولوا يا عم في إصابات احنا مش قادرين نخش نجيبها، الأمور صعبة. ضلينا نكبر لما فجر النهار وصعبنا حنا وطلعنا واحد ورا واحد لقينا فيش إلا احنا في المنطقة، يعني لا فيها يعني المنطقة كلها اللي فيها مخليين.
As food and fuel supplies running low in Gaza amid the ongoing fightings between Hamas and Israel, some in the isolated strip are trying to eke a living siphoning petrol from scarce trucks trickling into the territory. At Gaza's Rafah crossing with Egypt, youth run after petrol tankers coming from Egypt to scrape off drops of the precious liquid to fuel generators and move cars. Power cuts are frequent in Gaza and often last for 8 hours. Many have generators to power up their houses, but fuel is not easily found. 8 trucks, which are part of United Nations aids that were destined as fuel to power the territory's power plant, were prevented from crossing earlier in the week. It is triggered by incident that saw militant mortars fired at a crossing with Israel, prompting the Israelis to close it down. A rocket fired by Palestinian militants in Gaza landed at a main road near the southern Israeli city of Beersheva on Thursday. No one was reported injured. Gaza's militants continued firing barrages of rockets, and Israel's army struck targets in the territory amid increasing international pressure to cease the hostilities. The fighting, the worst Israeli-Palestinian violence since 2014, has killed at least 230 people, including 65 children and 39 women, with 1,710 people wounded. Some 58,000 Palestinians have fled their homes for safety. 12 people in Israel, including a 5-year-old boy, a 16-year-old girl, and a soldier, have been killed. Israeli military pounded the Gaza Strip with airstrikes early on Thursday. The situation seems not getting better, though the number of casualties are inclining. A large plume of black smoke billowed skywards after one raid rattled the Palestinian territory at daybreak. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday vowed to press to go ahead with offensive actions, despite calls from the United States to wind down the operation that has left hundreds of casualties. U.S. President Joe Biden has called for significant de-escalation by day's end after 10 days of heavy fightings. Speaking in New York, Stefan Dujarric, the spokesperson for the United Nations General Secretary, welcomed the brief opening of the Kerem Shalom border crossing, which allowed a number of fuel trucks to enter the Gaza Strip, but expressed regret that the crossing was shut again after a security incident. Medical supplies, fuel, and water are running low in Gaza. Israeli attacks have damaged at least 18 hospitals and clinics.
Reports of additional infrastructure, civilian infrastructure being hit in Gaza, including in the central COVID-19 testing lab and other health and humanitarian facilities. In addition, we continue to receive reports of significant displacement of Palestinians within the Gaza Strip. More than 58,000 men, women, and children have been displaced, 47,000 of whom are seeking protection in some 58 UNRWA schools across Gaza. And as far as security situation allows, the UN, along with our partners, are providing food and non-food items to displaced families and immediate cash assistance to more than 56,000 people.
Coming up on World News, we'll be right back with more news, especially on our top entertainment, where Anthony Mackie is back with Anthology. Stay with us.
Semangat sering kolaps ngadepin new normal? Lo butuh bodyguard baru. Segar dingin SDC 1000 rasa orange. SDC 1000 dengan triple proteksi, vitamin C 1000 mg, madu dan ekstrak mint untuk bantu jaga daya tahan tubuhmu.
Rasa orange-nya seger banget, bikin baper. Siap gaspol di new normal. Minum SDC 1000 rasa orange.
Baru SDC 1000 rasa orange, bodyguard tubuh biar nggak ngedrop dari Wings Food.
Banyak orang belum memeriksakan kondisi kesehatannya secara rutin.
Juga banyak orang yang kemudian mengkhawatirkan masalah biaya sehingga medical check-up pun urung dilakukan.
Dr. Laser bekerja sama dengan Rumah Sakit Mitra Keluarga memberikan layanan medical check-up kepada Anda, pemirsa Metro TV.
Manfaatkan kesempatan medical check-up screening jantung dan juga screening stroke diskon hingga 50%.
Dan pengumuman kode voucher diskon medical check-up akan ada di akhir acara.
Go Healthy, cara tepat hidup sehat.
Dalam momentum perayaan Waisak, mari bangkitkan rasa kebersamaan, menumbuhkan kepekaan, meninggikan lagi solidaritas dalam kehidupan berbangsa kita. Saksikan rangkaian informasi seputar Hari Raya Waisak dalam program-program berita Metro TV. Waisak membangkitkan semangat persatuan untuk Indonesia maju. Metro Singwen, tayang setiap Senin sampai Jumat jam 7 pagi.
Welcome back on World News. Jennifer Hudson channels Aretha Franklin in the new trailer for the movie Respect. Respect follows Aretha Franklin from her on HBO Max will debut this month. Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, David Schwimmer, Matthew Perry, and Matt LeBlanc got together recently on the show's original soundstage in Burbank, California, to tape a retrospective on the. Coming up next is our top entertainment news, where movie theaters in the United States are back. Anthony Mackie is back with an anthology, and Glastonbury Festival is expected to open for one day only. And that's all World News for tonight. I'm Sarah Wade. Thank you for watching, and good night.
Actor and former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger was joined by filmmakers and major Hollywood studio executives as part of the Big Screen is Back initiative. Other speakers and attendees included J.J. Abrams, Maggie Q, and Sam Richardson. The gathering was one of the first in-person events for the industry to showcase its biggest upcoming projects. The 3-hour event also featured movie clips and trailers from Disney, Sony, and other studios. Extended footage was shown from Warner Brothers' In the Heights, Disney's Cruella, Universal's F9, Paramount's Snake Eyes, and Aretha Franklin's biopic Respect from MGM Studios' United Artists Releasing. Each speaker encouraged the return to the theaters as the industry moves to rebound after the pandemic created life without theaters about a year ago.
I don't have anything more to share than what you know, other than...
My baby's back. Anthony Mackie's back. Oh my goodness, I love him. Anthony Mackie says he chose to take on Solos because of the rare opportunity it provided. Solos is a 7-part anthology series from Prime Video that explores truths of what it means to be human, whatever that means. Each episode centers around a character. In some episodes, there's only one actor delivering a play-like monoblue. Anne Hathaway, Anthony Mackie, and Helen Mirren all helm an episode, with Dan Stevens and Morgan Freeman joining forces for theirs.
They'll remember.
Mackie also told the AP, that's Associated Press, that despite being named the next Captain America, he doesn't feel famous. Aw, really? He says despite the attention he's receiving, he hopes to have a career that lasts beyond the fanfare of today. I know it will, honey. Solos premieres Friday, May 21st on Prime Video.
Are you binge watching anything right now?
Almost there, but not quite yet. A license has been granted for a special one-day Glastonbury Festival in September. Festival organizers are several weeks off confirming plans. But Mendip Council, who oversees the festival's Somerset location, have given permission for a 60,000 capacity event. In the meantime, on Saturday, 22nd May, Glastonbury will stage a one-day live-streamed concert at Worthy Farm in southwest England, home to the annual music extravaganza without a crowd. Performers include Coldplay, Damon Albarn, Georgia Smith, Haim, Wolf Alice, and Michael Kiwanuka, plus spoken word from PJ Harvey, Jarvis Cocker, and more. The festival has been held almost annually since 1970, drawing up to 150,000 people to the Evis family's farm. In January, organizers canceled the traditional 5-day June event for a second straight year because of, what else, the coronavirus pandemic.
Metro TV.
Banyak orang belum memeriksakan kondisi kesehatannya secara rutin.
Juga banyak orang yang kemudian mengkhawatirkan masalah biaya sehingga medical check-up pun urung dilakukan.
Dr. Laser bekerja sama dengan Rumah Sakit Mitra Keluarga memberikan layanan medical check-up kepada Anda, pemirsa Metro TV.
Manfaatkan kesempatan medical check-up screening jantung dan juga screening stroke diskon hingga 50%.
Dan pengumuman kode voucher diskon medical check-up akan ada di akhir acara.
Go Healthy, cara tepat hidup sehat.
Khasanah Islam, setiap minggu jam 2 siang.
Indonesia tanah air beta, pusaka abadi nan jaya. Indonesia sejak dulu kala tetap dipuja-puja bangsa.
Indonesia tanah air beta, pusaka abadi nan jaya. Indonesia sejak dulu kala tetap dipuja-puja bangsa.
Di sana tempat lahir beta, dibuai dibesarkan bunda, tempat berlindung di hari tua sampai akhir menutup mata, tempat berlindung di hari tua sampai akhir menutup mata.
Metro TV, a part of Media Group News.
Selamat malam pemirsa, inilah headline news pukul 00 waktu Indonesia Barat. Menteri Luar Negeri Indonesia Retno Marsudi menyerukan Israel untuk menghentikan kekerasan di Palestina. Dan dalam pertemuan khusus Majelis Umum PBB di New York, Amerika Serikat, Retno Marsudi meminta PBB segera bertindak dan negara-negara yang hadir dalam pertemuan itu berkomitmen dan bersatu melawan tindakan kekerasan Israel.
We must put a stop to the systematic efforts by the occupying power that may leave nothing left to be negotiated. We must not allow the Palestinians to have no other choice but to accept injustice for the rest of their life. Therefore, we have to stop this injustice now. We have to continue our support to Palestinians to get their independence and justice. Mr. President, in recent days, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we witnessed the erosion of trust in multilateral institutions. Today, we hold this meeting with one main purpose: to ensure that justice prevails for the Palestinians. This meeting will be seen as a litmus test for multilateralism. We must remain committed and stand united in our efforts against all illegal acts of Israel toward ending the occupation in Palestine. We have to act now together. UN has to act now. I thank you.
Sementara itu, Menteri Luar Negeri Jerman Heiko Maas melakukan kunjungan ke kawasan konflik di tengah krisis perang Israel dan Palestina. Di Israel, Heiko mengunjungi sebuah rumah di Petah Tikwa yang hancur akibat dihantam roket. Heiko datang ke Israel ditemani oleh rekannya, Menteri Luar Negeri Israel Gabi Ashkenazi. Gabi mengajak Heiko mengunjungi sejumlah lokasi yang hancur dihantam roket. Dan selain bertemu pejabat Israel, Heiko dijadwalkan bertemu dengan pejabat Israel lainnya. Heiko menyebut bahwa kunjungannya sebagai bentuk solidaritas. Heiko mendorong kedua negara menghentikan serangan yang telah mengakibatkan banyak korban warga sipil. Demikianlah Headline News untuk saat ini, dan Headline News akan hadir 1 jam dari sekarang. Sampai jumpa.
Banyak nelayan tidak bisa melaut karena kondisi perahunya tidak layak pakai. Nelayan membutuhkan perahu yang berkualitas agar mereka bisa kembali produktif. Melalui program Susi Cek Ombak, saya Susi Pujiastuti mengajak Anda berdonasi melalui rekening Yayasan Benih Baik Indonesia, Nelayan Berseri Laut Lestari.
Metro TV hadir di mana peristiwa terjadi. Bekerja dengan identitas yang jelas dan mampu beradaptasi dengan teknologi terbaru agar Anda bisa mendapatkan informasi dengan segera. Jurnalis Metro TV berintegritas dan tidak menerima imbalan dalam bentuk apapun. Metro TV, knowledge to elevate.
Hello, good evening to you. I'm Ralph Tampubolon.
And I'm Fifi Aleda Yahya, and you are watching Asia Prime on Metro Globe Network.
And we're live from Jakarta, Indonesia. In the next 60 minutes for you, we have prime stories from all over the globe. Welcome to Asia Prime.
As the war in Gaza shows no signs of abating and truce efforts are apparently stalling, general strikes and protests are widening the conflict after a spasm of communal violence in Israel and protests across the West Bank. We have the latest updates from Gaza.
China has released photos of its spacecraft landing on Mars. It will join an American rover that arrived at the Red Planet back in February.
Companies will procure COVID-19 vaccines for free to workers and their families in the Gotong Royong vaccination program. Indonesian President Joko Widodo inspected the launching of the Gotong Royong vaccination program this week in Cikarang, West Java. More than 22,000 companies have registered to participate in the program with more than 10 million recipients. In the Gotong Royong vaccination program, companies will procure free COVID-19 vaccines to workers and their families. It will be carried out in several stages, depending on the availability of the vaccine. A total of 420,000 doses of vaccines produced by China-based pharmaceutical Sinopharm will be used for the initial stage. The government is targeting 70 million people to be vaccinated by August or September this year. The president hopes that the program can help accelerate the government's efforts in flattening the curve of COVID-19 trend.
Dan kita harapkan target itu bisa dipercepat dengan adanya vaksin gotong royong ini.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization calls on some of the world's top COVID-19 vaccine producers to work more and produce more doses to the needy around the world, especially in developing countries. This effort is needed to accelerate vaccination for all countries.
While we appreciate the work of AstraZeneca, who have been steadily increasing the speed and volume of their deliveries, we need other manufacturers to follow suit. Pfizer has committed to providing 40 million doses of vaccines with COVAX this year, but the majority of this would be in the second half of 2021. We need doses right now and call on them to bring forward deliveries as soon as possible.
China calls for more assistance in COVID-19 vaccine distribution in Africa. This including the assistance in the medical supply, technology, and funding of vaccines. The Director General of the Africa Department at the Chinese Foreign Ministry made the comments at the UN Security Council meeting on Wednesday. Wu Peng said that China has been donating and selling vaccines to nearly 40 African countries. China has pledged roughly 500 million doses of its vaccines to more than 45 countries, with just 4 of China's many vaccine makers claiming they are able to produce at least 2.6 billion doses this year. A large part of the world's population will end up inoculated, not with the fancy Western vaccines boasting headline-grabbing efficacy rates, but with China's humble, traditionally made shots. Egypt will start locally producing China's Sinovac COVID-19 vaccine in June, with Sinovac enabling the Egyptian side to obtain the expertise and technical assistance to produce the vaccine, giving the license to manufacture and pack the vaccine in Egypt.
实际上，中方已经并且正在。
And moving on, we now take you to the Yanghang Mosque in Urumqi, the capital of northwest China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, which is the venue for religious activities for local and foreign Muslims in Xinjiang. Asia Prime will be back for more. Stay tuned with us.
清真寺始建于1897年，1909年，当地的德和洋行出资，改建了一次。当时我们这个片区有很多外国人，开银行，也开很多公司，所以这片区被称为洋行区，所以我们这个洋行寺这个名字从这里出来的。
لا يعتبر مسجد يانغخان موقعاً لإقامة الشعائر الدينية من قبل مسلمي شينجيانغ فحسب، إنه أيضاً مكان مفتوح أمام مختلف المسلمين الأجانب في مدينة أوروموتشي.
The mosque is so beautiful and we can come here at any time, but usually we are so busy with our studies, so me and my friends came here like every Friday for Juma only. People and the food, everything is so good here. The people are so friendly actually. Me and my friends are so happy to stay here.
Kesehatan yang sudah tidak optimal tentu akan berakibat pada kualitas hidup Anda. Ilmu pengetahuan yang semakin berkembang dan teknologi yang semakin maju membawa sejumlah inovasi di bidang medis.
Setelah diperiksa lab, gulanya tinggi. Curiga, hati-hati. Ini adalah salah satu tanda masalah pada jantung.
Jangan anggap enteng yang namanya stroke. Halo pemirsa, apa kabar? Senang sekali saya Tantri Murdopo dan juga Kak Ronald bisa kembali menjumpai Anda di Go Healthy, cara tepat hidup sehat.
miliki gudang multiguna at Peak 2 Bispark. Hadir dengan layout yang fungsional, bisa difungsikan sebagai gudang, kantor, dan rumah sekaligus. Hanya 3,5 menit menuju interchange, hanya 18 menit menuju Bandara Internasional Soekarno-Hatta. Miliki gudang multiguna ukuran 6x20 meter dengan harga spesial 2,5 miliar rupiah. Kunjungi show unit kami, hubungi 021 588 8000.
Bangun pagi dengan suasana hati baik, siap memenangi hari dan dengan semangat untuk menyapa Selamat Pagi Indonesia. Kami siap hari ini. Apapun tantangan yang datang saat kita menjalani hari, pasti membuat kita menjadi lebih baik. Dan hey, kita sudah punya segudang info baru yang inspiratif dan seru. Lengkap ada di sini, di pagi hari. Di Selamat Pagi Indonesia, setiap Senin sampai Sabtu, jam 8:30 pagi.
ايش هذا الصوت؟
صواريخ اظن طالعه هذه طلعت رشقه صواريخ والكهرباء فيش بتجيك ساعة وبتقطع، يعني فيش لازمنا نشغل على خط المولد والاسلاك رايحة، فيش عندنا كهرباء ولا في عندنا نت ولا في عندنا مية ولا في عندنا أي شيء، وإيش بدنا نعمل؟ يعني هذا زلمة عمره 81 سنة، إيه كان هنا الحيطة ضربت الشباك ضرب عليه، أنا كنت نايم جنبه الحيطان كلها وقعت علينا، الثلاجة طار علينا، لما قمت أنا صحيته، هو هذا بيعرف يرمي صواريخ، هو هذا بيعمل، ما هذا مدني، هذا من كبير في السن، إيش بده يعمل أنتم تضربوا في حق المدنيين.
توت انا مسوس ما كمان ما عملوش اشي وهم طخوهم وكمان اجى عنا بومبينج واحنا خفنا عشان صغار وفيش عيد.
How's the situation for the children? So bad, so scaring. So bad.
Israeli military pounds the Gaza Strip with airstrikes early on Thursday. The situation seems not getting better, though the number of casualties are inclining. A large plume of black smoke billowed skywards after one raid rattled the Palestinian territory at daybreak. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday vowed to press to go ahead with offensive actions despite calls from the United States to wind down the operation that has left hundreds of casualties. U.S. President Joe Biden has called for significant de-escalation by day's end after 10 days of heavy fightings. Gaza health officials say at least 230 Palestinians have been killed in airstrikes and more than 1,500 others are wounded. 12 people in Israel have been killed by rockets.
Meanwhile, explosions could be heard and smoke was seen rising above the Gaza skyline on Thursday as conflict between Israel and Hamas continue escalating. Earlier, Israel unleashed a wave of airstrikes across the Gaza Strip, killing at least one Palestinian and wounding several others. The latest strikes came after Prime Minister Netanyahu pushed back against U.S. pressure to wind down the offensive against Gaza's militant Hamas rulers who have fired thousands of rockets at Israel. Explosions shook Gaza City and orange flares lit up the night sky, with airstrikes also reported in the central town of Deir al-Balah and the southern town of Khan Yunis. Israeli military says it struck at least 4 homes of Hamas commanders, targeting military infrastructures as well as a weapon storage at a home belonging to a Hamas fighter in Gaza City. Meanwhile, Israel's army released footage on Thursday showing what they say was a strike targeting a multi-barrel rocket launcher belonging to Hamas in Khan Yunis. The army said in a statement that the strike prevented fire towards Israel. The rockets exploded as a result of the strike and caused secondary explosions in the area, according to the statement.
In an emergency session, 3 members of the United Nations Security Council urged an immediate cessation of violence in the Israel-Gaza conflict and confirmed their support for a 2-state solution in the region. The statement by the trio was blocked by the United States, which, according to diplomats, is concerned it could interfere with diplomatic efforts to stop the violence. Tuesday's briefing came as fighting continued. A rocket launch from Gaza killed 2 fire workers in southern Israel on Tuesday. It happened hours after Israeli airstrikes toppled a 6-story building in Palestinian territory. As the war showing no sign of abating, Palestinians residing in many countries conducted rallies simultaneously, a rare collective action against Israel's policies.
Nobody is succeeding in bringing Israel into compliance to this global call for ending this aggression. What is the UN's business if it does not come rushing to help us, the vulnerable one, the ones who are under attack, the ones who are facing aggression? Nevertheless, we will not give up. We will keep knocking on the door. Nevertheless, our people everywhere, the Palestinians, in the occupied territory and both sides of the green light, you do not find a single one raising the white flag. The interest of the Palestinian people is not to send gifts to Netanyahu. The interest of the Palestinian people is to isolate Netanyahu and his extremist fascist groups until they cannot bear this global pressure on them to stop this aggression, which will happen. But it would have been good had it happened a few days ago. We would have saved lives, but they are dragging it for a long period of time.
Meanwhile, Palestinians living along Gaza's northern and eastern borders are fleeing intense Israeli bombardment. Families toting supplies sought refuge on Friday in temporary shelters in central Gaza City as Israeli artillery pounded northern Gaza. Fleeing families arrived in pickup trucks, on donkeys, and by foot at schools run by the United Nations, hauling pillows and pans, blankets, and bread. Men lugged large plastic bags and women carried infants on their shoulders, cramming into classrooms. Israeli artillery pounded northern Gaza early on Friday in an attempt to destroy a vast network of militant tunnels inside the territory. According to the military, it is bringing the front lines closer to dense civilian areas.
بدنا نطلع بالليل، ضلت الزنانات تقصف والبراميل يقصفوا علينا لما تفجر النهار، لمينا حالنا ما صدقنا نطلع من الدار واجينا نجري على المدارس. هاي كل اللي ولا واحد ولا استوعبنا شيء من لم صرخة الاولاد، هم يصرخوا ويصوتوا بدهم يطلعوا واحنا بنرجف عليهم. اكثر من هيك لا. بالمهم صحينا لقينا الدنيا دمار عندنا كلها ورا، فيش شيء عندنا مليح.
ولا في دنيا ولا في دين، صرنا الله اكبر نكبر اكثر من هيك لا. الدار تطلع وتنزل تطلع وتنزل، اكثر من انه نكبر ما قدرناش. ولا قدرنا نطلع ولا اتصلنا على الاسعاف. الهم الاسعافات بيقولوا يا عم في اصابات احنا مش قادرين نخش نجيبها، الامور صعبه. ضلينا نكبر لما فجر النهار وسحبنا حالنا وطلعنا واحد ورا واحد، لقينا فيش الا احنا في المنطقه، يعني لا فيها يعني المنطقه كلها اللي فيها مخل.
Speaking in New York, Stefan Dujarric, the spokesperson for the United Nations General Secretary, welcomed the brief opening of the Karim Shalom border crossing, which allowed a number of fuel trucks to enter the Gaza Strip, but expressed regret that the crossing was shut again after a security incident. Medical supplies, fuel and water are running low in Gaza. Israeli attacks have damaged at least 18 hospitals and clinics.
Reports of additional civilian infrastructure being hit in Gaza, including in the central COVID-19 testing lab and other health and humanitarian facilities. In addition, we continue to receive reports of significant displacement of Palestinians within the Gaza Strip. More than 58,000 men, women, and children have been displaced, 47,000 of whom are seeking protection in some 58 UNRWA schools across Gaza. And as far as security situation allows, the UN, along with our partners, are providing food and non-food items to displaced families and immediate cash assistance to more than 56,000 people.
Jordan's lower house submitted a parliamentary memorandum demanding that the government expel the Israeli ambassador. Members of the House unanimously agreed during a parliamentary session to discuss the current situation in Palestine territories and Israeli attacks on Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. They also agreed to summon the Jordanian ambassador from Tel Aviv and stop the agreement signed with Israel. Jordan will always support and defend the Palestinian cause, Jerusalem and the holy sites. Members also argue that more should be done to secure residency in West Bank's Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, where Israel wants to expel Palestinian families.
أن الاحتلال هو أساس الشر كله، وأن كل ما تشهده المنطقة من تصعيد مرده هذا الاحتلال اللا شرعي اللا إنساني الذي يجب أن ينتهي.
لماذا لم تتقدموا إلى المحكمة الجنائية الدولية بصفتكم معطاتية للمحكمة الجنائية الدولية بتقديم شكوى المتعلقة؟ ما عملتوا ساكت، رحتوا على مجلس الأمن، شو سويتوا في مجلس الأمن؟ وشو سويتوا في مجلس الأمن؟ اتفاقية الغاز مع العدو السعودي ما تسدوها من داخل القرار بالإجماع، وأنتم قاعدين مجلس وزراء حضرتوا لنا شيئا. يجب نموت بالاستحقاق الدستوري والمادة 95 أن تتقدم الحكومة بهذا المشروع عدم استيراد الغاز من العدو الصهيوني. اتفاقية وادي عربة، طبعا العدو الصهيوني مسك اتفاقية وادي عربة ومسك كل الاتفاقيات وقتل ابناء هذه العاقل وقتل ابناء السفارة، وانتم حريصين على بقاء السفارة هناك. كل كلمة يا رئيس الوزراء ما سمعتك، بالله عليك اسمع سمعتك اليوم. كل كلمة أنكم غير مرغوب فيكم يا عدو الصهيوني.
الشيطان الأكبر. إسلامي لبيك يا سيستاني. هل من ناصر إسلامي؟ هل من ناصر حسيني؟ لبيك يا خميني. هل من ناصر حسيني؟ خيبر يا صهيون. أيوة خيبر يا صهيون.
And we have more stories for you to follow right here on Asia Prime on Metro Globe Network. Stay with us.
Kenapa sih kita harus berinvestasi di PIK 2? Ada 3 alasan utama. Yang pertama, lokasi PIK 2. Alasan kedua, setiap orang yang membeli PIK 2 dianggap sebagai pemegang saham. Membeli produk PIK 2 memang selalu untung karena harga perdana PIK 2 50% di bawah harga market. Alasan yang ketiga, fasilitas. Di mana fasilitas yang tersedia di PIK 2 jauh lebih banyak dari real estate manapun juga.
Kesehatan yang sudah tidak optimal tentu akan berakibat pada kualitas hidup Anda. Ilmu pengetahuan yang semakin berkembang dan teknologi yang semakin maju membawa sejumlah inovasi di bidang medis.
Setelah diperiksa lab, gulanya tinggi. Curiga, hati-hati. Ini adalah salah satu tanda masalah pada jantung.
Jangan anggap enteng yang namanya stroke. Halo pemirsa, apa kabar? Senang sekali saya Tantri Murdopo dan juga Kak Ronald bisa kembali menjumpai Anda di Go Healthy. Cara tepat, hidup sehat.
Bagi peradaban, teknologi menjadi sahabat perubahan. Juga bagi kami. Dengan teknologi, kami memastikan setiap informasi tersampaikan dengan baik. Sehingga Anda tak hanya mendengar dan melihat, tapi juga merasakan tiap berita yang kami persembahkan. Metro TV, knowledge to elevate.
Indonesia recorded a trade surplus of $2.19 billion in April 2021. It is higher than previous month, which was at $1.57 billion. In an online press conference, the Indonesian Central Statistics Agency, or BPS, stated that the surplus was favorable for the rise of export for up to 52%, and it showed a positive indicator for Indonesian economic growth. Export was better than import in April, which was rising 52% compared to March, while import inclined almost 30% month on month. An economist from the University of Indonesia, Fitra Faisal, said that the trade surplus was performing very well, higher than the market expectation. It's forecast earlier that the trade balance would decline as much as $1.57 billion. Further, export also increased in tandem with the Purchasing Manager Index, which has reached solid expansive level at 54.4 in April 2021. The market has been optimistic, foreseeing the achievement in terms of export and import data in April, which will have positively impact to economic growth up to 7% in second quarter of 2021.
In order to eliminate the spread of COVID-19 in the aviation sector, the Directorate General for Aviation at the Transportation Ministry launched a vaccination acceleration program for air crews. Situated at Health Aviation Hall in Jakarta, a number of air crews, including pilots, co-pilots, cabin crews, and engineers on board, all took their first shots of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Is a protection program for air crews who are working at aviation transportation sectors for onboard and ground crews as they directly work with passengers. Director General for Aviation at the Transportation Ministry, Novi Rianto, who oversees the program, says that the program is targeted for 1,200 crews within 5 days from May 15th to the 23rd. She adds that about 95% of air crews must be vaccinated by the end of the year. Meanwhile, second shots of the vaccine will be given August 24th to the 28th.
Indonesian police is conducting air patrols to monitor returning e-travelers. It was conducted in 7 checkpoints. The results showed that more than 5,000 people had returned from their hometown in Sumatra. Before boarding on ferries to Java Island, the passengers were required to show they were free of COVID-19 documents. From random checks, 67 people were tested reactive for COVID-19. However, police hope that by the end of this month, positive cases will decrease. Meanwhile, a week after Eid al-Fitr, traffic on the Trans-Sumatra Highway is still crowded. Police predict there will be thousands more passengers boarding ferries heading to Java Island in the coming days. Based on data from the Indonesian Transportation Ministry, a total of 400,000 passengers have crossed Sunda Strait through Bakahuni Port. The peak of returning Eid travelers from hometown is predicted to happen on May 21st and 22nd.
China has released photos of its spacecraft landing on Mars. It will join an American rover that arrived at the Red Planet back in February. Plans call for a rover to stay in the lander for a few days for diagnostic tests before rolling down a ramp to explore an area of Mars known as Utopia Planitia. China's first Mars landing follows its launch last month of the main section of what will be a permanent space station. This is a mission that brought back rocks from the moon late last year.
India on Wednesday reported more coronavirus deaths in a single day than any other country at any time during the pandemic. Infections continued to spread through vast rural areas with weak health systems. The health ministry reported a record of more than 4,000 deaths in the past 24 hours, driving India's confirmed fatalities to more than 200,000. With over 25 million cases since the pandemic began, India's confirmed infections are second only to the US. Experts say new infections in India, which had been rising steeply, may finally be slowing, but deaths have continued to rise and hospitals are still crowded with patients. Over the last month, India's COVID-19 fatalities have jumped sixfold. The situation is particularly alarming in Uttar Pradesh, India's most populous state with 200 million people, where a court Monday said citizens have been left at God's mercy. India's vaccination drive is also faltering just at the time when it is needed the most. The number of daily administered doses has fallen by about half over the last 6 weeks. Many states say they don't have enough vaccines to administer.
Moving to Malaysia, where it showed solidarity to the people of Gaza by lighting up the Kuala Lumpur KL Tower in the Palestinian national colors. Since Sunday, the tower has been illuminated with red, white, and green, and the display will continue until the end of this week. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, Israeli airstrikes on Gaza have killed at least 213 Palestinians, including 61 children and 36 women, and wounded more than 1,000 people. Hamas and other Palestinian factions have fired more than 3,400 rockets from Gaza, killing 12 people in Israel, including a 5-year-old boy and a soldier.
Meanwhile, to ensure the health and safety of passengers, authorities at the Tirtonadi bus terminal in Solo, Central Java, disinfected the entire terminal on Thursday. The disinfection process was conducted throughout the terminal and all buses to anticipate further transmission of COVID-19 after the Eid holidays. The number of passengers arriving at Terminal Tirtonadi has increased significantly 1 week after Eid al-Fitr. Most passengers are migrants who have been working in Solo.
Back to India, where Navy ships worked through the night to recover the bodies of 37 people aboard a barge that sank off Mumbai as a powerful storm lashed the region this week. Navy spokesman Mehul Karnik says 5 ships of surveillance aircraft and 3 helicopters were involved in this search. Most of the 188 survivors and 37 bodies arrived in Mumbai. A survivor, Indrajit Singh, recalled that everyone on the big barge rushed to the deck sensing danger. Survivors bobbed up and down in life jackets up to 8 hours before they were picked up by the rescuers. Cyclone Tauktae packed sustained winds of up to 210 kilometers an hour, leaving more than 50 dead in Gujarat and Maharashtra states.
Tourists and Parisians were queuing early Wednesday morning to be the first to get inside the famous Louvre Museum when it reopened at 9 a.m. Museums, cafes, and restaurants' terraces were reopening Wednesday after a shutdown of more than 6 months deprived people of what feels like the essence of life, sipping coffee and wine with friends outdoors to save lives during the coronavirus pandemic. The French government is lifting restrictions incremental to starve of a resurgence of COVID-19 and to give citizens back some of their signature joie de vivre. As part of the first stage of the plan, France's 7 p.m. nightly curfew instead will start at 9 p.m. Museums, theaters, and cinemas are reopening along with outside areas of eating and drinking establishments that have been closed since the end of October, the longest time of any European country except Poland.
It's mean a lot. That mean, you know, the COVID-19, it start to finish, you know, when it's opening all the museums and all that.
Clashes erupted near Morocco's border with the Spanish enclave of Ceuta on Wednesday as security forces tried to disperse would-be migrants. Police and troops were deployed to Finidec to block access to the border. Dozens of mainly young men gathered at a nearby square and clashes erupted when security forces tried to move them away. Some of the men threw objects at the force's personnel and set fire to a makeshift barricade in the middle of the street. About 8,000 people have crossed into Ceuta from Morocco in the past 2 days in an unprecedented influx. Most of them swam around breakwaters and across the border to reach the Spanish enclave in North Africa. Over the decades, Spain has built a close relationship with Morocco to crack down on illegal border crossings and also to increase economic ties and fight extremism.
We have compiled videos from what happened in the last 18 hours in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And more news ahead on Asia Prime. Please stay tuned on Metro Globe Network.
Berbagi cerita seputar masalah kesehatan langsung dari sumbernya.
Setelah makan, kok kayak rasanya kelengan gitu, kayak gempa.
Di dada saya ini kayak ketarik-tarik.
Kreatinnya juga tinggi, sampai akhirnya dirawat. Selalu ada note, Bu, LDL-nya tinggi, gitu.
Bagaimana cara agar kesehatan kita tetap terjaga? Apa saja solusinya? Saksikan Go Healthy di Metro TV. Editorial Media Indonesia. Opini surat kabar terpercaya hadir di pagi hari Anda. Membahas isu secara tajam dan mengulas peristiwa dengan lebih mendalam. Tampil matang dengan dialog interaktif. Mengajak Indonesia menyikapi permasalahan bangsa dengan terukur dan cerdas. Editorial Media Indonesia, Senin sampai Sabtu, live jam 7:30 pagi. Selama tidak menjaga lingkungan, jangan mimpi lihat yang indah. Kurangi sampah dari rumah mulai sekarang.
As the war in Gaza shows no signs of abating and truce efforts are apparently stalling, general strikes and protests are widening the conflict after a spasm of communal violence in Israel and protests across the West Bank. We have the latest updates from Gaza.
China has released photos of its spacecraft landing on Mars. It will join an American rover that arrived at the Red Planet in February.
Companies will procure COVID-19 vaccines for free to workers and their families in the Gotong Royong vaccination program.
Prince Harry and his wife Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, marked their third wedding anniversary Wednesday. Meghan, a former star of the American TV legal drama Suits, married Harry, a grandson of Queen Elizabeth II, at Windsor Castle in May 2018. Their son Archie was born the following year. Since announcing their departure from royal duties last year over what they described as the British media's intrusions and racist attitudes toward the Duchess, the couple have been detangling their lives from the British royal family and are living in California. The Duke and Duchess gave Oprah Winfrey a bombshell interview with Winfrey that aired in March. Harry is now teaming up with Winfrey for docuseries. The Me You Can See explores mental health and emotional well-being with stories from people around the world. The Sussexes have also signed a deal to create content for Netflix and are creating podcasts for Spotify. Harry has also joined the corporate world as a leader with the employee coaching and mental health firm BetterUp Inc. Meghan and Harry are expecting their second child, a girl, later this year. Oscar winner Emma Stone returned to the Hollywood red carpet Tuesday for the world premiere of Cruella at Hollywood's El Capitan Theater. Is that El Capitan or El Capitan? I don't know, I'm not from Hollywood. Stone plays a younger version of infamous dog napper Cruella de Vil in the new movie directed by Craig Gillespie. The pampered London heiress was voiced by Betty Lou Gerson in 1961 animation 101 Dalmatians and played by Glenn Close in live-action movies 101 Dalmatians in 1996 and 102 Dalmatians in 2000. The new film arrives as reopened theaters hope for a revival in moviegoing. Cruella, which also stars Emma Thompson, will be released on May 28.
I'm just getting started.
Avicii's legacy will live on in Sweden. One of the country's popular arenas is being renamed Avicii Arena. How appropriate. Avicii's father made the announcement Wednesday, about 3 years after the chart-topping Swedish DJ producer who toured the world died. The indoor arena in Stockholm, which first opened in 1989, was previously called Ericsson Globe. It was named the Stockholm Globe Arena until 2009. Avicii loved his music. Born Tim Bergling, died at age 28 in 2018 by suicide. He broke barriers by mixing country and western sounds with dance music and was part of the pack of white-hot DJ producers remixers who stood out as pop stars in their own right, from David Guetta to Calvin Harris to Skrillex. Love them, all of them. Commonly referred to as the Globe, the arena houses more than 16,000 seats for concerts, and it is shaped like a large white ball.
China calls for more assistance in the COVID-19 vaccine distribution in Africa. This includes the assistance in the medical supply, technology, and funding of the vaccines. The Director General of the Africa Department of the Chinese Foreign Ministry made the comments at a UN Security Council meeting on Wednesday. Wu Peng says that China has been donating and selling vaccines to nearly 40 African countries. China has pledged roughly 500 million doses of its vaccines to more than 45 countries, with just 4 of China's many vaccine makers claiming they're able to produce at least 2.6 billion doses this year. A large part of the world's population will end up inoculated, not with the fancy Western vaccines boasting headline-grabbing efficacy rates, but with China's humble, traditionally made shots. Meanwhile, Egypt will start locally producing China's Sinovac COVID-19 vaccine in June, with Sinovac enabling the Egyptian side to obtain the expertise and technical assistance to produce the vaccine, giving the license to manufacture and pack the vaccine in Egypt.
Indian Navy ships and helicopters search in extreme weather and rough seas Wednesday for 78 people still missing from a barge that sank off Mumbai as a deadly cyclone blew ashore this week. Navy Commander Alok Anand said 183 people were rescued within 24 hours by the 3 ships and helicopters engaged in the operation. In another operation, a Navy helicopter rescued 35 crew members of another barge, Gal Constructor, which ran aground north of Mumbai. Both barges were working for Oil and Natural Gas Corporations, the largest crude oil and natural gas company in India. Cyclone Tauktae, the most powerful storm to hit the region in more than 2 decades, packed sustained winds of up to 210 kilometers per hour when it came ashore at Gujarat state late Monday. The storm left at least 25 dead in Gujarat and Maharashtra states.
As night fell in Spain's North African enclave of Ceuta on Tuesday, police and soldiers continued their chase of migrants, including unaccompanied minors who attempted to cross from Morocco into the European nation. Since Monday, more than 8,000 migrants have crossed into Ceuta by either jumping the border fence or swimming into Spanish territory. The number getting in slowed after Spain deployed additional police officers and soldiers. But the arrivals did not stop even when anti-riot police on the Moroccan side dispersed crowds of people hoping to cross over. At least 4,000 have been returned back to Morocco, but thousands are now being held in warehouses where unaccompanied children were seen by AP sleeping on shelves or on the floor, as well as on tent beds set up by the Red Cross. The sudden influx of arrivals, especially children, has collapsed existing reception centers and caused a humanitarian crisis. Women and children who cross into Spain irregularly are normally immediately taken to special shelters for vulnerable migrants and asylum seekers, as many can be victims of human trafficking.
Germany opens up coronavirus vaccinations to everyone starting June 7th. The current system of prioritization in which the most vulnerable groups are to be vaccinated first will no longer be valid then. The health minister said that the vaccination campaign had picked up speed in recent weeks and that by the end of May, about 40% of all people in Germany will have received at least one shot. 70% of those above the age of 60 had received one shot, and about a quarter of them are fully vaccinated. All in all, 40 million doses of coronavirus vaccines have been given, and around 9 million people are fully vaccinated in the country of 83 million. After months of lockdown, the infection rate has been dropping in Germany, and some German states are slowly starting to open outdoor dining and various shopping possibilities.
And we still have more stories from other parts of the globe. Stay with us right here on Asia Prime on Metro Globe Network.
Kesehatan yang sudah tidak optimal tentu akan berakibat pada kualitas hidup Anda. Ilmu pengetahuan yang semakin berkembang dan teknologi yang semakin maju membawa sejumlah inovasi di bidang medis.
Setelah diperiksa lab, gulanya tinggi. Curiga, hati-hati. Ini adalah salah satu tanda masalah pada jantung.
Jangan anggap enteng yang namanya stroke. Halo pemirsa, apa kabar? Senang sekali saya Tantri Murdopo dan juga Kak Ronald bisa kembali menjumpai Anda di Go Healthy, cara tepat hidup sehat.
Islam adalah rahmat bagi semesta alam. Ia memberikan petunjuk bagi manusia dalam menjalani kehidupan lewat Al-Quran.
Sejatinya kitabul ilmi perlu dipahami dan dimaknai dengan benar, lalu diimplementasikan dalam keseharian.
Saya ajak Anda memetik kebaikan Al-Quran dan memahami ilmu Islam bersama alim ulama bangsa. Saksikan Hasanah Islam setiap hari Minggu pukul 2 siang waktu Indonesia Barat.
Hotels and bed and breakfast are amongst the latest establishment to reopen as lockdown restrictions continue to ease in England. The hospitality industry has been particularly hard hit during the pandemic, and hotels are keen to make up for losses. For the Savoy Hotel in London, that means sprucing up the luxury premises in fashion of the Roaring '20s to herald a new era of decadence. A staple of the Savoy experience is the afternoon tea, which has been served since the hotel opened in 1889, which includes finger sandwiches with fillings like cucumber and green pea hummus and medium rare beef on balsamic mayonnaise, as well as homemade scones with clotted cream and jam, and a range of delicate pastries and cakes. Like many businesses, the Savoy adapted during lockdown by offering delivery of products like this. Afternoon tea will continue to be offered for collection or delivery within a 12-kilometer radius of the hotel, even after the Thames foyer reopens to serve guests inside the hotel. As government social distancing restrictions ease and hotel begins to open up again, the Savoy is also sprucing up its interior to welcome back guests to the wider hotel. That's certainly the drive behind the Savoy's new luxurious seafood bar, which offers oyster selections, lobster rolls, gravlax and blue scallop ceviche, as well as a sumptuous seafood platter. I think I'm drooling.
Looks good. Should we go?
Yes, I think. Next plane, okay? Next week. Is it okay with you, your schedule?
Well, in the meantime, we'll just have evening tea, although we need to refill the cups first.
We should, and we will.
Moving on to the world of movies now, Jennifer Hudson channels Aretha Franklin in the new trailer for Respect. It follows Aretha from her childhood to becoming a successful singer.
This one, I wonder when it is going to be available in Jakarta.
Well, speaking of which, it has been a long time since I've been in a movie theater. How long has this been for you?
It's been 1.5 years, I think. That's the least, that's the least.
In other words, before UK, I think we should settle with movie theaters locally first and then move on to the more remote destinations.
Okay, well, if we do decide to go to movie theaters, don't forget wearing your mask at all times and keep your distance. Well, that's all we have for Asia Prime today.
I had fun.
I had fun as well. We hope you enjoyed our show, the first show from Metro Globe Network. I'm Fifi Aleda Yahya.
I'm Raul Tampubolon. This is Asia Prime. Thank you for watching.
Metro TV. Untuk meningkatkan kualitas siaran, Metro TV migrasi ke satelit merah putih Telkom 4 dengan parameter pastikan tetap terinformasi dengan tayangan lebih jernih bersama Metro TV.
Selamat pagi pemirsa, Los Angeles Lakers meraih kemenangan tipis 103-100 atas Golden State Warriors untuk meraih peringkat ke-7 klasemen wilayah Barat. Kemenangan ini membuat Lakers akan menghadapi Phoenix Suns di babak playoff, sementara Warriors akan menghadapi Memphis Grizzlies untuk memperebutkan peringkat ke-8.
Tuan rumah LA Lakers tampil di Staples Center menghadapi Golden State Warriors. Warriors sempat unggul 43-33 melalui lemparan 3 angka Steph Curry. Total, Curry mencetak 37 angka dalam laga ini. Namun